Hi, I'm Talicza.
And I'm Rachel, and this is Transatlantic Crime, a true crime podcast that covers stories from each side of the pond. Every week, we will both cover a separate story with a running theme.
Disclaimer, this podcast will contain swearing and details that some people may find offensive. If you are of a sensitive disposition, listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Transatlantic
Crime. So close.
We have a lot to talk about for you because you had a birthday and you had a hen do.
Oh my God. It's been a hot minute, hasn't it, since we've talked?
Yeah. Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back. Off the top, I just ate a fucking Serene bar, and because I bought some mini ones, because I bought you over a big
Love
one.
Love those, yeah.
I'm not joking. It was like eating whatever planets are made out of. It was so dense. It nearly fucking ripped my teeth. It was like eating a toffee. It was unbelievable.
I love them. I love them so much.
Oh my God,
Can't
it was like an ordeal. Tempted to send over the rest of the packet that I have because I ain't gonna eat those.
Although I'm on a workout eating plan right now for the next, 8 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that. So I can't eat that stuff right now.
No Serene for you.
No Serene for me.
It is like fucking dark matter, so I can't imagine it fitting into any reasonable diet plan. What's the diet plan?
I'm not cutting any. Well, I'm eating less sugar and stuff like that, but it's just I don't eat enough. Basically, I don't really go throughout my day and eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So this is just me making sure that I'm getting all of my appropriate nutrients and everything. So it's not like I'm on the Atkins diet
around breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm not on the Atkins diet or the keto or whatever. It's just making sure I'm eating enough food and it's good food. It's not like I'm eating a plate of nachos at the end of the day and that's my dinner.
Yeah, even though that does sound delicious, yes. Yeah, it's very sensible. That's what a mum would put you on. And be like, right, you are going to eat porridge for breakfast, young lady.
That is literally what I just ate.
I've probably had my mum lecture me to eat porridge before, so
yeah.
Good for you, Rach, getting on the health train.
Thanks.
It's all right, mate. So I have not been on the health train. I've been on the booze boat. Yeah,
yes.
So it was my friend Charlotte's getting married, and it was her hen do, and I haven't been on a hen do for ages. So we had to dress up like Spice Girls or 90s themed.
Oh,
so I just wore my
that.
normal clothes. Yeah. And we went on a boat, and there was a drag queen on the boat.
Amazing.
And they did a twerking competition. We all had to do our best twerks, which I luckily I wasn't in that one because I can't twerk for shit.
I can't.
None of us can, it turns out. It's a really
it's an art form.
Niche skill.
Yes.
Yeah. It's so difficult. And I was had my ass in the drag queen's face being is this it? Am I doing it? They were kinda.
Good,
and I
good
was
effort.
Doing it continuously for 5 minutes, and then by the end of the 5 minutes they were maybe you're getting it, maybe it's there. And then we had a slut drop competition, which obviously I'm great at. We were all good at that, and I won the slut drop competition. I sent you a video of that, didn't I?
Yep.
Horrific.
Amazing video. Good job.
Thanks very much. And obviously it was a lot. We had boxes of wine and stuff. The next day everybody just felt pretty sorry for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was doing that thing where you just think, because your card taps on stuff, you're oh, it's just magic money. So you know when you check your bank balance the next day and you're why, God, why?
No.
And you know when you're pissed up and generous and you're I'll get this round in. Who wants a drink? You, a drink for you, a drink for you, a drink for you.
You get a drink and you get a drink.
I was holy hell. So there might be some eBaying going on towards the end of this month. Just
Same.
Horrific. After this hen do, I was like, oh, never. You know, when you're like, never again, never drinking again. Like, fuck this. I feel like shit.
Yeah.
I've been working from home all week, and I've sort of, you know, when you're like rattling around.
Yeah.
And I was like, dum-de-dum. And then like, I was like, oh, I'm starting to feel a little bit better actually. And then my friend Loretta was like, I'm going to come round and like show you my baby. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I was like, do you know what? Fuck this. I'm opening some Prosecco. And it was like Wednesday. And I was like, so it took from Saturday to Wednesday for me to swear off alcohol and then drink again. And I was like, yeah, but I think I just kind of forgot the drudgery of life. I was like, nope, gonna need something to spice this up.
Yeah, I've been there many times where I'm like, I'm never doing this again. I'm not drinking. That's it. I'm not drinking for the next year. And then like a week later, it's like, well, this is fun.
Anyone got a beer?
Yeah.
Has anyone? Have you got through all the alcohol that was at your party yet from when I came?
No. Are you kidding me?
I don't know.
No, I ended up bringing some of that to another party. And I still have some left. I have just so much.
It off.
Yeah.
People went all out for that party.
Yeah.
It was good. Okay, so
let's talk some true crime stuff.
I've been trying not to talk to you about all the programs I've been watching, all the podcasts I've been listening to, because I just need to talk about it on the podcast and not waste good podcast material.
Yeah.
I found this podcast called Gone South.
Oh.
Have you heard of it?
I don't think so.
So I have been solely focusing on podcasts that are all out. I'm like, if it's not all out, I don't want to know about it.
It's got to be a binge.
I'm not waiting a week. You can forget it. So I found Gone South, and it's so good. It's about this prosecutor in Louisiana, and she gets murdered by being stabbed once through the heart.
Whoa.
While she's walking her dog. But she lives in a gated community, so it's like really safe. But they find out there's literally about 6 people that could have done it.
Okay.
And they deep dive into all of the people.
When did it happen?
Super interesting. I don't think it happened that long ago. Maybe like 2018.
Oh, wow.
And the guy that does the podcast is the same guy that made the Pharmacist documentary. Have you seen The Pharmacist on Netflix?
No.
That's about a guy, he's a pharmacist, and his son died of an opiate overdose.
Mm.
And then everybody that came into his chemist, he was like, why are you getting these really strong pain pills? Like, what are they for?
Yeah.
And people would be like, oh, just like, you know, bit of a bad back or whatever. And he was like, okay, well, do you want to try these less strong ones first? Like,
wow,
he was basically trying to stop. Yeah, he was trying to stop people getting hooked on pain pills because his son died. And then he realized that just tackling it that way wasn't going to do anything, and he had to go higher to government and then the pharma companies. Yeah, he made this documentary and it's really good. I'd recommend watching that.
Okay.
And then he made this Gone South podcast, which is really well done. They kind of definitely come to a conclusion of what they think happened, which I quite like as well. Like when they nail it down and they're like, this is what I think
even happened. Though nothing official has been proven.
No, nothing official, no. And I was also listening to a podcast called, I think it's called An Absurd Result. Do you know what they're like? I wouldn't recommend you listening to it. But the crux of it is a really interesting concept. There's a little girl and somebody burgles her house, but they rape her while they do it.
Okay.
And then this random guy in town gets blamed for it, and he's basically just a teenage troublemaker. And he's a bit I don't know if he is actually has learning difficulties or he's a bit sort of slower, but he speaks kind of like he might do.
Okay.
And he like mumbles loads, and he seems to be a bit sort of like behind things.
Yeah.
And the police basically target him. It's a bit of a Stephen Avery type situation.
Yeah.
They target him and they pin this crime on him. It's because the little girl is doing a photo fit drawing with somebody, and a police officer just leans over and goes, "Oh, that's so and so," which is obviously so out of order because you're putting that idea in someone's head.
Right.
Like, A, you're putting that idea in someone's head. B, that's just a drawing. Also, like, she saw him at night in her room. She didn't see him like in the day or anything, so it's not going to be the most perfect representation of the perpetrator.
Yeah.
And anyway, he gets exonerated because they do DNA results, and it excludes him as a possible,
of course,
possible perpetrator, so he didn't do it. But they find out the guy that they think did do it, and by that point, the statute of limitations has run out on sexual assault. So somebody got to rape an 8-year-old and get away with it.
Wow.
And they took it to the Supreme Court and everything, and it just gets thrown out.
Where and when was this?
I think it happened in like the 90s or the 80s, and it was in Missouri.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I believe she was 8 in the 90s. And there was an argument of you can't retroactively apply the law. So even if they got that law changed now, it wouldn't save her conviction. It wouldn't save her getting the person that did it to her in prison, but it might save future people. But then the other argument was, it's not as if the law changed and then you're trying to prosecute somebody. For example, like say marrying somebody who was 14 was legal back then.
Right.
And then it became illegal. You couldn't go back and charge someone with like statutory rape.
Right.
But what he did was illegal then and it is illegal now.
Right.
So retroactively applying it isn't getting him for a crime that he didn't commit then, but he did commit now.
It's just the statute of limitations that ran out.
It's just the time.
Right.
Yeah, it's just the time.
Which is crazy.
Their argument is kind of, you know, evidence like degrades and people's memories fade and stuff, so it wouldn't be a fair trial. And if it's too far in the future, and that's what the statute of limitations is for.
That's so ridiculous, because it's like you have the evidence and the witness from the time, whatever you have from that time, and then now you have the DNA that matches somebody. What is there missing? What is needed?
You're literally like, he did it.
He did it.
He just fully did it.
Yeah.
So I don't. Yeah, it's such a frustrating listen, and that is dragged out over like 6 hours. So I was listening to it being like, oh, he's going to get convicted, it's all good. And then they were like, yeah, we took it to the Supreme Court and he didn't get convicted. And I was like, what? I was so annoyed.
Thanks for saving us of that.
I don't want you
expectations.
I don't want you to go through.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, it's going to work out. He's going to be put in prison. Nope. So annoying. Really irritating.
At the same time, the rest of his life, that's what he's going to be known for, unless he moves to Canada and changes his name or something.
Yeah. There was a woman who did an article on him, like what he's been doing and where he's been.
Yeah.
And it was, when I Googled his name, her article was like the only thing really that came up.
Wow.
There's other people, I think, I can't remember his name, he's called Ron something. But there were other people called Ron something or other that came up. Like, so it's not this massive story.
Okay.
And yeah, so when you Google him now, like there's a picture of him in the courtroom, because it did go to a courtroom.
Yeah.
But obviously the charges were dropped.
And she would be like our age now if she was that age in the 90s. So I hope she's doing well. What was the name of that podcast?
It's called An Absurd Result, I think.
Okay. That kind of gives away the ending.
They don't, even when you read the description, I think it says what happens, but I wouldn't waste your time listening to it. I've just told you exactly what happened anyway.
Okay. Well, it sounds like it was made well and it was a good story, so I'd probably listen to it just for that.
Oh yeah, it was definitely like, it's not her fault the result is really frustrating.
Right.
Like the woman that made the podcast, it's not her fault that the fucking state of Missouri or Montana or wherever are a bunch of dicks and won't convict a child rapist. But yeah, you know when you're watching Making a Murderer and you just want him to get out.
Yeah.
Like so bad.
Right.
It's like that. Even though, let me caveat that with, I think he did do it. So have you been watching any true crime?
I've just been going through a lot in the past couple of weeks, and I've really been just...
It's been intense.
It's been an intense couple of weeks or months, and I've been watching a lot of reality TV. I've not been watching any true crime. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts. I'm still listening to American Scandal, which, again, is a great binge because there's so many seasons and so many different stories.
I tried to look at that and I got so overwhelmed with how many seasons there were that I was like, I can't do this.
It is overwhelming. Maybe once I get through, then I'll make a list of which seasons you should listen to and our listeners.
That would be really helpful. Thank you. I would appreciate that.
Maybe that could be a Patreon episode too, or I don't know.
Sure.
Maybe I'll just share it for free on here for everyone. But speaking of Patreon, our episode is out with mine and Carly's episode, and I've had some good feedback from it so far.
Are they other people that believe in aliens?
That's the thing. I think me and Carly, and maybe our listeners who have gotten back to us, we're in this boat of like, it could be, but I feel like when you start
Jurassic Park could happen.
When you start saying I believe in UFOs, I feel like you're put in this bracket of like
the people with crazy massive hair,
that
have their cigarettes stolen when they have KFC and stuff.
Yes,
like that alien abduction program.
Exactly. So I don't say outright, yes, I believe in UFOs. I just tell them what I said in the podcast episode with Carly, which is, here's my experiences with it. So maybe.
Yeah, I think it's a safe bet to be on the fence.
Yeah.
When it comes to announcing you believe in UFOs. I mean, that guy in the program, he lost his job. Exactly. But he was saying that they had a relationship and a child. So that's a step further, I think, than saying maybe could happen. Yeah. Okay, so one last mention of true crime TV.
Yes.
Because I've been hammering through it.
You've been swimming in a sea of true crime TV and podcasts.
I'm an unstoppable machine. I watched House of Hammer. You know, the Army Hammer thing?
Yes.
So I was like, okay, I slag off Army Hammer. I need to know why I'm slagging him off, properly.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I'm not wrong. He's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like, he says he's doing, like, BDSM with his girlfriends.
Yeah.
Like, sadomasochism stuff. He's not. He's tying them up, like, basically against their will. And...
They're young and they like don't 20... know any better. It's their first experience with BDSM. So it's like basically somebody is teaching you all this stuff and you trust them. And
yeah, and he's teaching you wrong.
Exactly. He's just doing it in a selfish way, making up the rules that are best for him.
Yeah, he has a lot of text about how he wants to eat them and cut bits off them and have them be his slave, and they're not cool with it. And he's like getting off on that. And also there are there's some accusations of rape in there as well. He fully rapes people, but pretends that it's a kind of game or whatever. And they're like, no, it's not a game. I didn't want to have sex with you. And then he kind of goes into rehab. And he's like, oh, I'm in rehab for like my sex addiction and drugs and stuff. And then tries to plan this like big comeback. And then he was in a film called Death on the Nile, which I didn't watch. Yeah. I have heard of. But like, I wouldn't watch it knowing he was in it. And I think a lot of people felt the same because the film was a bit of a flop.
Yeah.
And
it had big people in it. It had Gal Gadot and...
The poster was like 20 people that were the characters.
Gal Gadot, Kenneth Branagh, Annette Bening, Letitia Wright, Russell Brand is in it. So a bunch of big people.
Yeah. Yeah, and apparently like it didn't do very well and his career hasn't taken off like the same. But he's from a billionaire family. Like his great-great-grandfather was an oil baron. Yeah. So it just goes to show money can't buy you fame if you want it. Like
it can for a while, and then you'll do something shitty, and
the trash takes itself out.
Exactly. There's the Hammer Museum in LA. That's a big museum. They're really big in the art world. I have been avoiding that documentary because I follow one of his victims who spoke out about it. And
really?
She has been really outspoken about this documentary, about how the filmmakers asked her to be in it and she said, no, I don't want to keep reliving my trauma. And they used her text messages without permission, and they have spoken about her just in a bad way. And she's just been like, saying like, I didn't give permission to tell my story, but you are telling my story. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why. Because, I mean, as a filmmaker, if somebody says that, then you have to respect it. But they didn't listen to that.
I didn't know any of that. I wish I did know. Maybe then I wouldn't have watched it. But I am glad I did watch it. Because, you know, when you're like, you did bad shit.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
you want to know exactly what the bad shit they did was.
Right.
So that you can be strong in your position.
Yeah.
Like if somebody says to you, oh, why don't you like them? And you're like, because of this, I've like looked into it.
Yeah. But
yeah, so
I would recommend following her on Instagram. And if you do want to know more about what happened to her and what happened to other people, she has a bunch of different highlights and all of her text messages with Armie Hammer, or not all of them, but a lot of them. And you can, like, I got into a deep dive,
like a hole.
Of following, just like reading everything. And every once in a while she posts about the aftermath of that experience with him, and also dealing with the filmmakers and dealing with the courts and all that kind of stuff. But she is House of Effie. That's her Instagram.
Yeah, they mention her a lot in it. She's like the thing that breaks the story, basically.
She was, yeah.
Yeah, I watched that and that was super interesting. And now I'm watching Sins of the Mother.
Yes,
I have
been waiting to get into that. I'm hoping that I watch it tonight with a couple of my friends for our True Crime Taco Bell night.
So jealous of True Crime Taco Bell night. Although I'm jealous, but I wish you well, and I wish that I hope you get to watch this documentary, because the thing with her, right, it starts off with Lori Vallow, her children went missing, and you don't know where they are.
Yeah.
And it turns out that she killed them.
It's
right?
an insane story.
If that's not mental enough,
yeah,
there's 5 murders that happen on the outside of that.
Yep.
That she's involved in or near to.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a made-up soap opera saga. You just couldn't make it up.
Right.
And she was originally a Mormon. So like the Church of, what is it? Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Or the however fucking long the title is that I can never remember of that church. And so originally, like, all her family are Mormons. And they're all so sweet. They're all so lovely. And then she looks lovely and she looks sweet. And she sounds sweet, like when she's texting people, like, and then she does a podcast, which, funny enough, when this kind of story broke, I started listening to the podcast that she did, thinking, oh, wow, like, that'll be interesting. It's gibberish.
Okay.
Like, she's going on about how she's lived 20 lives and been a soldier, and basically they think the world is going to end, they thought the world was going to end on the 22nd of July, 2020.
What?
So specific.
Why?
I don't know. They've obviously fucking seen that in a book or whatever. They're really doomsday. Like, they break off from the Mormon church and start their own mad other church kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is basically a cult. And they start saying people are zombies and that they they're not in their body anymore. It's just so layered. It's a 3-part documentary, I think, but it could go on for like at least 6.
I could probably talk
so much mad shit that happened
for 6 hours about this.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But this documentary, documentaries are like, oh, her family did this, her family did that. They've got all of her family on it.
Wow.
They've got her mum, they've got her son, her first son, her relatives and close friends. Like, they've got really good access. So it's not just a sort of helicopter like documentary. It's they proper get in there to talk to people.
That's my worst fear. If I ever had kids, you would hope that you would bring them up in like a nice, sweet, good family, and then no, it just turns out that they're a psychopath, and whatever's in their head you cannot do anything about.
Well, you can't choose your family, and I've got some fucking nutters in my family, so I mean, they haven't murdered anyone that I know of.
It's
but
just scary.
Yeah, I do fear that if I have a child, I'll fuck it up somehow. And
not
then they'll
not
murder
that
me in my
I'll
sleep.
fuck it up, that I'll do everything right, and they'll still like they were just born a psychopath. What am I supposed to do about that? It's something that you can't control.
It's true. Like, you'll still love them, though. Ted Bundy's mum went to court all the time, and she was like, "Oh, not my Ted." And, you know, Jeffrey Dahmer's mum, like, when he got his head caved in with a barbell or whatever, she was like, "Well, are you happy now he's dead?" But people were like, "Yes, I am, actually." Even serial killers' mums love them.
Yeah. I can't wait to watch that documentary. I think that I did listen to, I think it was Dateline, or maybe it was 2020. They did like a few episodes on this story, and it was really good, and it's how I know so much about it. Look it up if you want to, but it's probably the same as the documentary, like all the information that you get.
Do you know what? It's the sort of thing that I thought, on reflection, would be so difficult to retell in a podcast, because there's people have got kind of similar names.
Yeah.
Like Chad Vallow.
Yeah.
And who's the other guy? The guy that she's actually with, that she's married to. Laurie Vallow and Chad Daybell.
Yes.
It's like Chad Daybell and Chuck Vallow, or their names are really similar, and you're like, that's her brother, but they haven't got the same name, and then it's just like, what the fuck? And then there's a niece that comes into it. It's just all over the shop, and all the kids have got different dads as well, so that's confusing. It's like Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Like, you have to fucking like pause it and Google people. But anyway, it's, if you can get your head in the game, that is I'm looking forward to us finishing this podcast and me turning it back on again.
Yeah.
Because I still haven't finished it.
Okay. I can't wait to watch it. I think even if I don't watch it tonight with the other girls, then it'll be something I watch this weekend for sure.
Yeah. 100%. Okay, should we get into the main event?
Yes, let's get into it. I have no idea what our theme is this week, Talicza. Tell us what it is.
It's my favourite theme at the moment, which is cold cases solved in 2022.
Yeah, amazing.
I thought I would take a leaf out of the YouTube channel that I love. I can't remember the name of it. I have posted it before because I like it so much. Just Google cold cases solved in 2022 and this channel will come up. Okay. It's like, it's just so satisfying to have an end. So this is the story of Mary McLaughlin.
Ooh.
And it's also good because this is in Scotland, and we don't go to Scotland much.
Yeah.
I must say.
Yeah.
Well, I don't go to Scotland. I don't go to Scotland enough. I go to Wales quite a bit.
Yes.
So I don't go to Northern Ireland much either. So let's see what we can do in those regions sooner rather than later. Mary McLaughlin was born in 1926. And in 1984, she was 58 and living in Glasgow. And she was a mother to 11 children and then had lots of grandchildren. Wow. And that is basically all I can find out about her as a person.
Aww.
Like, I like to find out a bit more about people and what they were like and stuff. But that's all I can find. And I think she was just really family like orientated.
Okay.
She's just comes from this. She's got a huge family.
Yeah.
So on Wednesday, September 26th, 1984, Mary was spending her evening in the Hindland pub in Hindland Street in Glasgow. So Glasgow is like north of Edinburgh in the middle of the country in Scotland.
It's
I haven't been to Glasgow.
Edinburgh and Glasgow are the two biggest cities in Scotland, right?
Yeah. So I need to go to Glasgow, but I've been to Edinburgh, and Scotland's brilliant. I need to go back. Mm-hmm. So she was playing dominoes and having a few drinks with her friends, and later she was joined by one of her daughters called Catherine. She just sounds like she's having such a wholesome life.
Yeah. Like,
she's at the pub on a Wednesday playing dominoes and having some drinks and hanging out with her daughter. It's just the cutest thing. So Catherine would later say that her mum wasn't drunk. She just seemed merry. So Catherine later had to leave the pub and catch a bus home. So she left Mary there. And then at about 22:45, so 11:15, Mary left the pub to walk less than a mile home to her flat. On the way, she called into Armando's chip shop on Dumbarton Road, and that has made me want some fucking fish and chips like you wouldn't believe. Like, imagine this. You're drunk, you're in Scotland, the air is crisp and cold, you're walking home from the pub, you got a bit of a buzz on, and you just go into the chip shop and get really salty and vinegary hot chips.
Gosh, it's the evening.
Your breath is on the, like, you can see your breath. Like, how good does that sound?
You're like, I'm going to get these fish and chips, and I'm going to go home, and I'm going to put on the TV, and I'm going to watch the TV, and I'm
kick off my
shoes. Amazing chips. Get a big pint of water, and sober up and just enjoy the warmth of my house and this food.
Yeah. Oh, God, heavenly.
Yeah.
So that's what she was doing, which got a big fucking lot of time for.
Mm-hmm.
So the staff in the fish and chip shop reported that she was joking with them and she bought fritters and cigarettes.
Okay.
I'm adding to this fantasy and I'm eating a pea fritter and I'm having a fag. Like, what a magical evening.
Just walking
Literally,
home,
just
ready to relax fully.
Just having a lovely cigarette on your way home. Oh, heaven. So, I can feel like the bundle of paper that the chips are wrapped in, and they're making my arm like all warm and like the vinegar's soaked through a little bit, and you could smell it, and it's all hot and steamy. Oh. Anyway, sorry. Really went off course there.
No apologies. This is true British
food
nostalgia feeling. Yeah.
Also, the chip shops sell cigarettes, which is so 80s.
It's so 80s.
So 80s. I mean, what an establishment. So a taxi driver named David Seeger said that he saw, and this is so cute, they called her Wee May.
Oh.
Her name was Mary, and they called her Wee May. Obviously, wee meaning little, if anyone like didn't catch that.
Yeah.
So yeah, he saw Wee May, and she was walking in front of his taxi with her shoes in her hands.
Oh, okay.
So she passed a shoe shop, and David Seeger said he saw a man trailing behind her. And he said every time Mary walked away, he was always behind her. So he is credited with the last sighting of Mary. Her family didn't hear from her after this, but this is an era you've got to remember before mobile phones.
Yeah.
So she wasn't really in frequent contact with her family. Like she wasn't texting her family saying like on my way home.
Yeah,
like, she was just going home.
Went home, somebody knew that they were going to see her the next day, and that's it.
Yeah, that is kind of exactly what happened. So, as I was saying, she wasn't in contact with her family. They lived in Glasgow, Lancashire, and Ayrshire in Scotland, which are just regions around.
Mm-hmm.
And once a week, one of her sons, 24-year-old Martin Cullen, would head to her house and see her. So, on the 2nd of October 1984, 6 days after the last sighting of her, Martin did just that. So, no one had said, like, she's missing. No one was panicking. He just said, well, I'll see her when I go round. He went to her house and he said he couldn't get an answer from knocking on the door. And then he noticed a strange smell, which he later described as the most horrible smell you could imagine.
Oh.
So he got a key from the neighbour, but he still couldn't get into the flat. So he had to kick the door down. And his ex-partner, well, she wasn't his ex, she was his partner at the time, June Brittle, she said, I'll go into the flat first in case your mum has had a fall or she's naked or whatever. Like, I'll just go in first, which is really nice of her.
Yeah.
She ran out screaming.
Oh.
And he said it was then that he realised that his mum was dead.
Oh.
So a post-mortem examination found that Mary had died after being strangled with a ligature at least 5 days earlier. When she was found, she was lying on a bed, on her back, with her right arm lying on the side of the bed and her legs apart. The pathologist described the scene. If you're eating or you're not into squeamish stuff, then skip forward. He said the body was in a state of putrefaction, especially the face. And the ligature was tied really tightly around her neck and knotted on one side, and that knot was really deep into her flesh. There was no trace of blood around the body or the bed, and a tie from a lady's dress or apron had been passed around the neck 3 times with 2 knots in it.
Wow.
So the reason I'm saying that is because this is why June ran out screaming, and why it was good that Martin didn't go in first, because the way that I don't think it was that she was posed, but there was obviously been some sort of sexual element to this attack.
Mm-hmm.
With her on a bed with her back and her legs apart and the ligature.
Yeah.
Evidence was taken from the scene, including the ligature. They also took Mary's dress and a cigarette butt, but at the time, very little could be done with regards to DNA. Isn't that crazy? Like, people would just have a cigarette at the scene of the crime and just chuck it on the floor.
Yeah. You could take a shower and nobody would know who you were. No one
Yeah,
would
I
be
mean, I
able
swear to
tell.
God, no, like I swear so many crimes have been solved with cigarette butts at the scene.
Yeah,
Like,
recently, yes.
It's fucking nuts.
Yeah.
There were no witnesses beyond the taxi driver, and despite taking hundreds of statements, officers were met with a brick wall and the case went cold.
Wow. So no
So
neighbors heard anything, nothing like
Nope.
that. Wow.
No. And this was in 1984.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2008, the case had been reviewed 4 times.
Wow.
But police were no closer to getting a profile of the suspect. And then in 2015, a 5th review of the case was opened, and police had a breakthrough with a new DNA profile facility at the Scottish Crime Campus in Gartcosh, North Lancashire. Previously, DNA experts could only look at 11 individual DNA markers, but the latest technology was capable of identifying 24, so the odds of getting a usable DNA profile dramatically increased. In 2019, so I don't know why there's 4 years between these things, but I think they basically realised that this lab could do that kind of work, and then it wasn't until 2019 that they actually, I don't know, got through the red tape, got the funding, like, I don't know. But anyway, there's 4 years between the review and what actually happens next.
Wow.
Yeah, the hands of justice run slow, right? Or the feet or the leg, I don't know, something. It's slow, okay?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So they decide to untie the knot in the ligature that had been tightened by the killer 35 years earlier because they were sure that it would contain... Sorry, I can't fucking talk today. They were sure, I'm just so excited. They were sure it would contain uncontaminated DNA.
Wow. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so previous examinations of the cord had only found Mary's DNA and a trace that was not possible to analyse. The new process, however, found a minor profile in the knot. Yeah, they just couldn't before. They knew there was DNA on there, but they were like, there's no point in wasting it because we can't get a usable sample.
Right.
So they ran this through the Scottish database and they found a match. So that man was Graham McGill. At the time of the murder, he was a 23-year-old sex offender. He'd been convicted of rape in 1981, and he was in the final weeks of a 6-year sentence, which had been halved due to good behaviour.
Oh, what?
Now, this is the infuriating part.
Okay.
He was granted temporary release from HMP Edinburgh as part of a Training for Freedom programme on the 21st of September 1984.
Oh my God.
So they would basically let you out like for a bit and be like, okay, this is what it's going to be like when you're outside.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So during that time, he travelled to Glasgow, struck up a conversation with Mary and walked her back to the flat. He was a stranger to the area and to Mary. So he came all the way from Edinburgh.
Just happened to get off a bus and...
Just find somebody to attack, I guess.
Did he have a work placement there? Like, why was he there?
No, this is one of the crazy things. You never find out why he was there. I'll get to it later, but one of her daughters has a theory.
Yeah.
So once inside the flat, McGill began a brutal, sexually motivated attack on Mary. He strangled her with a ligature he got from inside the flat. So it was I think it was her dressing gown cord or a cord for an apron, or they basically knew it was like a cord for a gown of some kind.
Yeah.
And he covered her with a green dress, which had been put on back to front. So he just left her lying there on her back and covered her up with her own dress.
And okay, you're gonna get to this. I won't ask questions.
Go on.
I was gonna say,
okay.
like, how do you know, like, did he give an account but I know you're gonna get to it.
I'm gonna get to it. Okay.
Yeah,
we'll get to it. So McGill returned to prison on the 27th of September, just hours after leaving Mary's flat.
Wow.
He stole her keys and locked the door behind him, which is why they think the son couldn't get in.
Yeah.
He took a black bra from the flat, which was later found in a nearby garden. So they tested that and the cigarette butt and her clothes, and they all had his DNA on.
Wow.
That's how they know that it was him that took the bra from the flat.
Yeah.
And that it was hers. The likelihood of the forensic sample on the cord belonging to someone other than McGill was 85,000 to 1.
Wow.
Pretty good odds.
Yeah, especially in Scotland.
Yeah. Police then said McGill was confused when the officers turned up at his door on the 4th of December 2019.
Yes.
And he was now aged, I know, right? Get him! And he was now aged 59.
Wow.
And he didn't say anything and he seemed really shocked. So at the time of his arrest, he was still being managed as a sex offender, but he was working in the Glasgow area as a fabricator, which is, I think, like a machine, operating a machine. Infuriatingly, in 1999, he was jailed for life for a brutal assault.
What?
Where he tried to rape someone, but he was released on license in 2007.
What is it with this man
years.
getting
I don't know.
put away, and then they're like, never mind.
He must just be the best prisoner ever.
Yeah.
He weaseled out of a life sentence.
Wow.
His trial started in April 2021 and lasted 4 days at the High Court in Glasgow. Sorry, I've just realised, cold cases solved in 2022? No, 2021. Just scrap that. Totally scrap that.
We'll change it to cold cases solved in the past couple of years or something more snappy than that.
We'll think of something snappy.
Yeah.
Okay. So his defence tried to cast doubt on whether the do you know what's so frustrating about this? His DNA is everywhere. How you are going to try and say that he didn't do this or it wasn't him, I do not fucking know. What is the point?
He's not from this town. He's not from this area. He's
not her friend even.
What kind of business does his DNA have on her things other than this?
None, Rachel. Zero business. So, right?
Right, we're going to court. We're going to say this to
That's
them.
it. Book me a train ticket to Glasgow. No, so the defence tried to cast doubt on whether the taxi driver, David Seeger, really did see McGill, as he didn't mention a very noticeable scar which runs from one of McGill's ears to his chin. Again, what if it wasn't him that he saw? It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And also,
he still has DNA all over our house.
It was probably dark. Maybe his face, that side of his face wasn't faced that way. Many reasons.
I would just be like, okay, we won't even have David Seeger on the stand. It doesn't matter. He's guilty as fuck anyway. So anyway, but they did. And then the defence also tried to insinuate that Mary was drunk at the time of her attack and shouldn't have invited someone back to the flat.
Oh,
this is still going on in 2021. In 2021, it's still going on that they are like victim blaming an old lady. It's insanity.
You know what I feel like? What is that cartoon where the man, he like has so much rage that he just like sets on fire?
Oh, I can't remember.
What is it?
I don't know what cartoon you're on about, but I can like envisage it in my head.
It's everyone really knows it. It's like, it's not like, it's in the style of like Pokemon. Like, what is it called?
Oh, Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, that's what I feel like.
Yeah. Also, it's so pointless because anything you say, I'm just going to go, the DNA was on her. The DNA was on her. The DNA was on the ligature.
Yeah.
So, however, the prosecution has just got like so many things. Apart from the DNA, they're knocking it out the park. They found his ex-wife, McGill's ex-wife, Suzanne Russell, and she recalled that in 1988, 4 years after the murder, he confessed to her that he killed a woman he met in a pub after going back to the flat. She added, he said he used her tights and said he was shocked how long it took to actually murder her.
What? And this person never told anyone.
No, but he also said he strangled her and said he just wanted to know what it felt like to kill someone. And when they asked why she hadn't come forward sooner, she said he threatened to kill her if she ever told anyone.
Okay.
Story checks out.
Yeah.
Like, he is obviously a madman.
He's just told you that he's killed someone. So.
And he'll probably kill you as well. So, yeah, I don't blame her.
Yeah.
On the 9th of April 2021, the jury found him guilty. And on the 18th of May 2021, the judge sentenced him to life. This is bullshit, with a minimum of 14 years. He'll be fucking out again. He'll be out again
in like 5 years. Come on. With how his track record of getting out.
And what are you hesitating over? He clearly did it.
Yeah.
I don't. Anyway, so that's Lord Burns who sentenced him. And he made the following statement in court. 36 years after the death of Mary, you have been convicted of her murder. She was 58 when she died and you were 22. You are now 59. Her family has had to wait all that time. They had never given up hope that someday they would find out what happened to her. They have been deprived of her love and companionship, and you continue to deny any responsibility for your actions. You therefore show no remorse for this murder. So yeah, he denies it all. He doesn't admit to doing it at all, which is crazy. Which kind of gives me hope that if he does come up for parole, he won't get out, because you have to admit that you did it.
Right.
Maybe that's in our favour.
Let's hope.
But if he is out in 8 years, I'm fucking going to Glasgow. So another of her daughters, Patricia Cullen, 58, said, I hope he rots. We've been through hell for 36 years. It's a disgrace that he was ever set free in the first place to be able to kill our mum. And I agree.
Yes.
So that is the story of Mary McLaughlin.
Wow. I'm glad he was caught, but it's so infuriating. This is the third time he's gone to jail for something he's done. If he had just
He's clearly a serial sex offender.
Yeah, clearly.
And who else has he murdered?
What else has he done that wasn't caught?
Yeah, I always think that. Yeah. Who else have you fucking killed? They've gone, sex worker, body dumped in a forest or dumped in a ditch. Like, not going to look into it any more than that. Like, It's only for the fact that Mary has family that are probably giving the police a hard time that they're looking into this over and over again.
Yeah.
But I imagine there's countless sex workers or people who are drug addicts and less sort
homeless
of cared
people,
for. Yeah, than she was, that their cases have gone cold, and it could have been a piece of shit like this. But, it's just not looked into as hard.
You said something about how the daughter has a theory of why he was in the area.
Yeah, so I could only find like one article on it, but the daughter basically has another daughter, none of the ones that were spoken to here, has a theory that he had an accomplice.
Oh, wow.
Because she was like, he had no reason to be there, so she thinks he was meeting a friend or meeting like another prisoner.
Yeah.
And she also thinks that it would have been easier for her mum to invite back like a couple of people rather than just a lone man on his own, or she just thinks that he basically had business there. Yeah. And she wants to know what it was, which makes perfect sense. You don't just randomly go to Glasgow.
When he told the other person, he said he met her in a pub, but the people in the pub would have remembered him. So maybe it was someone else in the pub and he went to that pub to go meet that person, or saw that person, and then he followed her home. That's my theory.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, I did it with her tights. Maybe he's talking about a completely different murder.
Yeah, he could be.
Like, he could have met another woman in a pub, strangled her with tights rather than the dressing gown cord.
Yeah.
And there could be a murder where a woman was strangled with tights that hasn't been solved or pinned on someone else.
Come on, people, let's look into this.
Let's cold case it. Cold case. Yeah, my favourite. But yeah, you won't have any trouble finding a case. Like, cases are getting solved left, right and centre in 2021 and 2022.
Thanks to Mr. Paul Holes.
Oh, I know. Yeah. He's got his new podcast out, which the jury's still out on
I
that
gotta
one.
get into that. We have so much to talk about in terms of like podcasts and TV shows. I mean, we literally talked for over half an hour today about it. So maybe after my episode next week, maybe we'll do like a true crime chat again and just talk about all these different things that we've been watching and listening to. There's so many good things out there. So much content.
I know. I love it.
Me too.
My dreams have come true.
And we're included in that. We are in that too.
We are.
So thanks for listening.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening to us. We hope you enjoyed it this week, and we will be back next week with my story.
Yeah. Speak to you then. Okay. Bye.
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 Thanks for listening to Transatlantic Crime this week. If you liked what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe.
And if you'd like to follow us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at TransatCrimePod, Instagram at Transatlantic Crime, and on Facebook with Transatlantic Crime Podcast.
Thanks, bye.